Good afternoon. This is Brian Cunningham and Brad Benz. We are presenting our district level improvement project, our district improvement project. Due to the inability to get everybody together, we are recording this and going to send out our results and findings. This project is on social and emotional learning curriculum.
The first category we're going to talk about is the need for project based on data. The data we looked at was really presented in three different fashions. The first thing we did was we gave a needs assessment and we administered that to all 18 administrators in the district. There were 4 high school, 4 middle school administrators, and 8 elementary administrators. 100% of them, when we asked questions, said that they cited a need for social emotional learning curriculum. At this point in time, 0% are currently integrating at the building level, and there's no evidence of a structured time for social emotional curriculum at any school. And as you see on the screen, 83%, 15 out of the 18 describe managing emotions as a number one skill or lagging skill in students. So with that needs assessment, what we were attempting to do is say, hey, is there a need? Where's the need at? And the need was obviously, well, 1, we want to teach these skills. 2, we want to make sure that we have a curriculum that's structured to do that. Next category is calls for support. In our building at Morgan Elementary, narrowing the focus down a bit, we knew that 38% of calls came from first grade out of all the calls for support. And the calls for support happens when administration is called in to help students regulate themselves. 87% of those calls were the result of failure to manage emotions. We saw the need from the administrative level, we saw the need from the classroom level to help out with that. And finally, we had an SRSS, student risk screening scale, that really looks at low risk, moderate risk, and high risk, what students are high risk so that we can help them on their lagging skills. And we noticed that in the area fails to manage emotions, the mean score for all students in first grade out of 51 students was 1.17. As we talked with district leadership, administration throughout the district, and teachers, that we found the need for social emotional learning. So to review the literature that helped us or helped guide our whole entire project, the first thing that we found through literature was that social emotional skill acquisition helps students, help them manage emotions, helps them control disruptive behavior. And this isn't only relevant to the present time, but we also found that studies that were longitudinal showed that many years beyond their schooling, where they worked in social curriculum, they were seeing benefits. Those that had those skills, the ones that were lacking those skills, they were performing worse, or they were hindered as an adult or as an adolescent. The second thing we learned through literature was that it's better to teach curriculum than to teach skills in isolation. Even in our building, we had teachers that were teaching peace corners or zones of regulation, but they were teaching them isolated, and having a structured evidence-based curriculum was found to be much more impactful on students. And third, we looked at different programs. There were 26 we viewed, 26 of the most well-researched social emotional programs. Second step was the one that we utilized, and not only because it was one that we financially purchased, but we also could get it here quickly, and it fit our needs as far as different methodology strategies that were used in the classroom, and it focused primarily on empathy, emotion management, which is what we were looking at in problem solving. So that helped us kind of hone in emotional management as an area that we wanted to look at, as well as the needs assessments that we did prior.
So the purpose of this project is to pilot a social emotional learning program. We focused, and we'll talk later, but we focused this really on our first grade classroom. We want to evaluate the effectiveness of having a social emotional curriculum as opposed to teaching isolated lessons or structures such as mindfulness or zones of regulation. We want a comprehensive program. So the purpose of this project was actually to research and pilot a social emotional curriculum. Second step is the program we chose. So our collaborative vision, when we met with our district leaders, they mentioned anecdotally a need for social emotional curriculum based on principals reporting to them, teachers reporting to them, saying we just don't have a curriculum. We need something to tie all this together, to work with all the students that we have with these needs and that are lacking skills. So we started in talking with them. We presented kind of what we were finding in our literature review. Looked at some possibilities of curriculums to pilot. We sent out, or actually created a survey and sent out to building administrators, asking about what skill do they see as a highest priority to target within this time frame. Overwhelmingly, that was managing social emotional. Overwhelmingly, that was managing emotions appropriately. And so using that data, we went from there, looked at literature reviews, found all sorts of wonderful research-based projects, research-based curriculums, pared that down to the building level, met with our building leadership teams, discussed what we're finding. They agreed with the needs that we are seeing, the high level of students who are not able to manage their emotions. And so within our building, we targeted our first grade class. We have 3 classrooms and wanted to choose one of the classrooms as a treatment classroom while the other 2 ran business as normal. And after this project, we are hoping to see impact and hopefully potentially implementing piloting programs district-wide. So after meeting with the district level and BLTs and naming the first grade classroom, we talked to the classroom leaders. I mentioned the previous slide, kind of a quasi-experiment class, preschool, process, and then after the treatment was given, we got the screener in. We piloted the second step program in one of our first grade classrooms of a 4-week period, specifically focusing on lessons that target managing emotion. That was Unit 4 and second step. And then we gave the teacher implementing this small professional development. We brought the materials in, sat down, reviewed with her. We got lucky; she had actually been familiar with the program. She taught us in a different district than the we sat down, invited her to the materials, see, make sure she understood the lesson plans, and looked at her calendar to find her schedule to find out when great time to teach these lessons. Looking at the lesson design of the STEP program, it looks like on the first lesson, Monday is really what there was a 30-minute explicit lesson taught to the students. That's followed up by 4 mini lessons with the last 1 minutes, following up practicing the skills taught on Monday. So the principals went in to observe those lessons to make sure they were doing them, followed the briefing after the lesson with the teacher on the plan time, reflect on how the lesson went, make sure the kids were objectives within the unit, and then model the lessons for the students that pattern next 4 weeks. So the design of this project is kind of a quasi-experimental. Mentioned earlier, we focus on our first grade classrooms. We have 3 classrooms. One will be used as the treatment classroom. The other 2 will just continue as business as normal, teaching the skills in isolation. And by skills, we mean like mindfulness, zones of regulations, having peace corners, and things like that. We modified the SRSS screener, and gave that as a screener, and then at the end of the project we gave a post screener, and teachers were asked to rate students based on specific skills, social emotional skills. Overwhelmingly, the inability to manage emotions appropriately rose to the top. That's the one we wanted to continue to focus on. So we piloted the second step curriculum over a 4-week period, and specifically targeting the lessons in the first grade. It's Unit 4. Those are the managing emotions lessons, and so we had our treatment classroom be embedded with those lessons by the teacher. Professional development, we gave the teacher time to look over the materials. We sat down, created a timeline for when she will teach these lessons during the day. Turns out the first lesson of each, the first day of the lesson is a 30-minute lesson, and then those are followed up by 4 mini lessons that support what they spoke about on day 1. Principals interviewed the teacher, asked what she needed, provided her time to look over the materials, reviewed to make sure all the contents were there. Principals also observed these lessons being given or taught. And then we met with the teacher after teaching each lesson to find out what went well, make sure she followed all the objectives or taught all the objectives and followed the outline of the lesson for fidelity, and continued this pattern over the 4-week course. So what we found over the course of 4 weeks, when we focused just on the treatment class, 44% of those students were coded as either moderate or high risk in failing to manage their emotions appropriately. 38% of those students coded as high risk did show improvement over managing their emotions over that 4-week period. And in the high risk category alone, 75% of those students made improvement. We also keep live data, and we've been doing this since August, and since we were doing it, we could use this for the project because it lined up well. But we have call for support data that any teacher can call for support when a student is dysregulated or needs support in the classroom. And what we found at 87% of the calls that we were getting were due to students unable to manage their emotions appropriately. So we compared that data prior to starting this project with ongoing assessment and teaching this to what did that data do? Did it change over time? And we did find for 12% of our students, there was a correlation to when the treatment started to over the 4-week period that there was a great decrease in the calls for support for that, for those 12% of students. A little bit more data with results. 44% I mentioned were of this classroom were coded as moderate or high, and that broke down to 50% were in the moderate, 50% were in the high. All of the students marked high risk were males, and then as I mentioned, 75% of those high risk students did show improvement over the course. Overall, 38% of the students did show improvement. When you group the moderate and the high together, 38% of the students showed progress.
These next slides will show some of the tools that we use to collect that data. One's a sample, and the other two are actual data that we've cut down. If you notice, this one is the modified SRSS pre-screener, and we have 3 teachers. Only one is showing up because that's the treatment group that we're looking at. The green is a low risk category, the yellow represents a moderate risk, and the red represents a high risk. And so we were trying to target, as Mr. Cunningham said, the red and the yellow group to see if there was improvement after this project took place over a 4-week period. If you notice up top, along that top line, you see lacks self-awareness, does not make responsible decisions, fails to manage emotions appropriately, lacks interpersonal skills, does not solve problems peacefully, negative attitude, and lacks empathy were the categories for which students were rated. And that category F, fails to manage emotions, was by far the most intense category, or the category with the most intense needs. This slide represents the modified SRSS post screener. As you can see, we've highlighted in orange, peach, whatever color that is, we've highlighted that Penelope, Marcus, Caden, and Chance all had higher scores prior to the implementation of second step, and now their scores are lower. So we are seeing a correlation, a connection between second step and then their scores after. This last slide is a sample report, and it has some of the students, and we obviously haven't put student names down. There's a sample report of our documentation of calls for support, those that we keep live data that we've talked about. And so you see 907, 911, 919, 1002, 1010. We have the location and the reason for the behavior, and that's where we found that over 80% were based on calls for support were based on managing emotions. With all of this data that we've collected in such a short period of time, it's our recommendation that we not only continue with our first grade, one teacher, but we expand it to our first grade, and potentially, as we move forward, move it on into other schools throughout the district, because we are seeing, with the decrease in numbers, an impact on social skills and students' ability to manage emotions. The second step doesn't just hit on managing emotions; it talks about empathy, developing interpersonal relationships. So those are other areas we think in the future can be hit on as well, but we want to do it in such a small frame of time to focus on just managing emotions we are seeing an improvement in.